So these are the 5 most hated on cars within the car community as a whole. But what's going on, guys? It's your boy Thomas here, and if you guys haven't yet, be sure to click the subscribe button down below with the notification bell rung. And without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the video. Also, just started a Discord server, so there's a link down below for that if you guys want to join. It's nothing but a whole bunch of car enthusiasts in the chat where we talk about cars, memes, and as well as, when I go live, and also post my notifications from my YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. I want to say the Scion TC first gen just because, well, not many people build them very great, honestly. In my own opinion, I would like to say that a lot of people, when they build these kind of cars, it's usually a very good starter car, and they don't really know what they're doing when they're building them. Usually slapping on some cheap coilovers or some lowering springs on some rep wheels with a fart can exhaust that they probably bought from AutoZone. Wait, what is it called? The Cherry Bomb, I believe? Which I think it really gives it a bad reputation within the whole car scene as a whole. I want to say any photos that are shown in the video of the owners of the cars, I do not have anything wrong with their build. So when someone does do it clean, everyone's really surprised, and it's quite honestly shocking. And like I said, I have nothing wrong with any of the photos I'm about to show you with the owners at all today. I just think that there's a lot of hate that comes towards these cars just because I think it's a beginner's car. And yes, just because it's a beginner's car doesn't mean that people can't do them exceptionally well. Like the 2 cars that I'm showing now currently, I think these 2 cars are actually done quite well. But a lot of people, when they start building these cars, they just kind of fall flat on their face. I think these cars are great to get into the community with and first start building a car. There's a lot of aftermarket companies that can help with it. And since there's not a whole lot of these going around with everyone building, different cars, there's not a whole lot of TCs per se. There's a lot of opportunity for you to pop off and blow up from it. In some cases, a lot of people put the quick release bumpers on when they realistically don't need it because they usually end up just breaking the clips even though they're not that low. Or if their bumper gets cracked or their lip gets cracked, they just kind of throw some zip ties on it and call it a day and still rep it like it's nothing's wrong. But yet they claim that it's a clean look. You don't have a clean car with a zip tie on it. Unless it's a drift build, then you can rock that. I just believe that the community doesn't really have much hope for this car, and it's honestly probably one of the most hated cars that I have actually seen within the car community, just because of the owners that don't do it right. Be sure to slap a like on this video. It really does definitely help me out a whole lot, and comment down below what you think is going to be the most hated car, or if you guys agree with what I said. This one was actually hard to choose. I'm gonna say the FRS and BRZ GT86, whatever you want to call it, the FRZ 86. I think just because they're so common also makes them the most hated. They're basically the new Honda Civic of the entire car community. But I do believe that a lot of the owners that build these cars, yes, most of them look copy paste and everything like that, but I feel like most of them do them exceptionally well. And I know what you're thinking, oh Thomas, you made a video about how the BRZ FRS GT86 is probably one of the greatest cars ever. Well, yeah, I still stand true to that. I think they are one of the greatest cars ever because they're so versatile, but a lot of them get a lot of hate because of the copy paste builds, or it's everyone's car that they just directly go to building because no one has real originality nowadays. And let's be honest here, every FRS BRZ GT86 owner's face looks just like this when they're driving it. But with a lot of love coming from this car and its actual community in a whole, there does come a lot of hate. The only thing that I don't like about these cars is, like I said, the copy paste builds. But that's within any community that you actually see. And just like the TC, and I think you'll see a common thing with all of these cars, is that everyone just decides, oh, let's make it as loud as possible, but as slow as hell. And not everyone goes for performance upgrades. Like myself, I went for straight cosmetic upgrades. And I think the owners of these cars sometimes actually give it a bad reputation, as much as I hate to say it, but a lot of them will literally just do stuff just to make a point proven and, be the loudest one there, or just bang off rev limiter, or do a burnout. Like, no one truthfully cares about that. Like, that's cool that you can do that. Go do it at your house. But since these cars are a dime a dozen now, I think just everyone in the community is just so over with it and so done seeing them everywhere they go. And as much as I hate to do this, because I am a Volkswagen head myself, I would say the Mark IV GTIs definitely get a lot of hate and attention thrown their way just because of sometimes usually what the owner does. Not to be confused with the R32. The R32, there's like no hate, I swear. But I think the Mark IV GTI owners, really do give this a bad reputation because they have to two-step everywhere. They all have the same pop tune, and everyone just wants to just be loud and obnoxious. Along with the TC, I think these cars are a dime a dozen as well, just because you can buy them so cheap nowadays. Just because the cars are over 10 years old and everything like that, and they're bumping on Facebook Marketplace. You could literally pick one up right now for literally under $5,000 typically. People just throw reps on them, some cheap coil springs, and call it a day and call it a build. Maybe they'll throw on a Bowser hood, the two-step pop tune, and literally just rip through neighborhoods and towns and just go bop, 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 bop every other way. Once again, they're just seeking for attention, and it's mad annoying. But the Volkswagen community does all come together, and a lot of them can actually build great builds of these. But since the cars are so old nowadays, they're so beat up, and no one wants to actually put in all of that time and work and actually take joy and pride into their build to make it actually look clean. Also, it's a beginner car, so usually like high schoolers or just fresh out of high school own these kind of cars. Note, that's not going towards everyone that owns one of them. And as well as like the BRZ FRS GT86, a lot of them do look like copy-paste builds. And as much as I love these cars, the community around them, the owners typically, because they are a lot younger than most of the other cars owners, besides the TC, they don't take care of them so well, and they're looking for attention and clout. Which, if that's what you're worried about, then you've hopped into the wrong scene, but also the right scene. The NC Miata. Hands down, the most overlooked car anywhere you go. When you think of Miata, you either think of the NA Miata, or you should have gotten an NA Miata. The ND has gotten more popular since they definitely upgraded it and made it look beautiful. The NB Miata, since they had the Speed Miata, definitely turns heads. And the NA Miata, well, it's the NA Miata. It's just a classic. The NC Miata, I feel like it gets absolutely no love or attention. And if you buy one, people just look at you with their head cocked. Like, why didn't you get another Miata that wasn't an NC? So I feel like as a whole, the community just bashes on them because it's an NC Miata. No one modifies an NC Miata. I mean, I know a handful of people that bought an NC Miata and they've made them look really good. But still, once again, at the end of the day, the community just looks at them and goes, well, why would you get an NC Miata over an NA Miata or an NB Miata or an ND Miata? No one goes, you know what I want? An NC Miata. Which is wild because they're not bad cars. I personally think that they get a lot of hate and everything because they're the ugliest of the four. Like, when you look at this car, it doesn't just scream, hey, yo, that's a sick car. It just screams, wow, Mazda went through a really tough time. But just like every other Miata, it's just slammed on its face or a drift car. But when's the last time you've actually seen an NC Miata that has been a drift car? Or when's the last time you saw someone do a sick engine swap in an NC Miata? Yeah, you can't really think of anything directly off the top of your head. And it's not even the owners that are making this car bad because, you know, there's a lot of them that actually look really dope, like the two that I've shown you now. Just the car gets a lot of hate just because of its predecessors. Just this car just overall gets so overlooked by everything in every car worldwide that no one thinks that an NC Miata can do well. That's why I think it's one of the most hated cars, because no one gives a hell about it. And you already know this car had to be on the list, the 350Zs. I think everyone can agree 350Zs are the epitome of the most hated cars worldwide. One, because they sound like this. Two, because every single one of them usually typically have the drift stitches, but they've never drifted a day in their life unless it's on the road, and they usually wreck. And the owners, fresh out of high school, think it's the hottest hot boy car that they can ever build, and they do a terrible job at it usually with, you know, the quick release bumpers, a Tomei exhaust that is gutted and is basically now just a straight pipe because they wanted it to look like they had a real Tomei exhaust. Or they get the loudest headers they could possibly get, so that way their VQ just screams, look at me. Also, when you look at the front end of this car, nothing screams look at me. The only thing that you're looking at is usually the rear or the mods that they've done to it. The front end of the car is very bland and just boring looking. It sucks because it had so much potential to be a cool car. Then the 370 came out and everyone was like, wow, that is so much better. And these are a dime a dozen that you can find on the Facebook Marketplace because they're used and abused. And it is what it is, but at the end of the day, the car just screams, help me. And don't get me wrong, people do a wonderful job with these cars building them too. The majority of them don't typically do a wonderful job. And you can't forget the drift stitches that the people usually put on the front bumpers to make it look like it's a cool car that they usually drift. Also, typically, usually these cars have the most curved up wheels I think I've ever seen on any other cars. Nissan kind of screwed it up with that, with the front end and rear end, and then the people that bought them that are fresh out of high school think it's the best drift car in the world because, you know, it's their first car that they just got that they're going to start modifying, and then they send it into a curb thinking that they can drift. They kind of ruined this car, and that's why the community hates this car probably the most. But that's probably going to do it for the video today, guys. Be sure, like I said, to hit that subscribe button with the notification bell rung so that way you get a notification whenever I post a video or go live here at night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. And I stream some gaming, which you guys should definitely come out to because it's always a fun time. The live is always such a vibe. Always people in the chat talking and, you know, basically one hell of a community that I've built. But with that being said, guys, I hope you guys have a beautiful night, a wonderful day tomorrow. And as always, doses.